Hi, Adam.
This is the first time that I've come onto a Twitter space, so thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you very much, Adam. Everyone, this is Adam Olsen. He's the MLA for Saanich North of the Islands. It's a great pleasure to have you on today.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, it's great, and yeah, it's something new. The Twitter sphere on the spaces. It's great. It brings the community together in so many ways for a common purpose.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We can have a place to have important conversations.
Yes, indeed, and definitely, especially the way that inflation is going these days and driving up the prices of everything, including housing and the cost of living in general. And yeah, unfortunately, it's persons with disabilities across BC and across Canada are they're getting the short end of the stick in so many ways. And so I know, like today, we're going to talk about the affordable housing and how that's having an impact on people on low income and people with disabilities for sure. And we can kind of maybe branch off to support levels and talk about that too, if we'd like to talk about that. Like the shelter rates in BC, just for instance, are still at $375, frozen for 15 years, Adam. It's just ridiculous. They just haven't done anything with it. I figured that it would have been changed when the government formed as a majority government, but no, it's not. And unfortunately, the former minister, I had him on my show talking about the 375, and Minister Simpson was talking about it, but he mentioned that it was mainly geared when they set it up was for people in like BC housing and in the kind of SROs. So that people in market housing, they pay high market rent. So it makes it really difficult, right? Because they got to use their support portion of their check to basically cover all the high rent prices, and leaves you basically with nothing. So basically, the end of the game on that one is that I think people in BC housing, like their rent is geared to income. So I think like it should be in market housing, people should have that option to have that same choice of if that's what they choose. I mean, but to still keep living where they're living, but have that same privilege of paying what people in BC housing pay.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I'll just say that I think that first of all, I just want to say that when the BC Greens were in a confidence and supply agreement, a partnership with the BC NDP, I don't. You made a comment that you were hoping that this BC NDP government would have dealt with it when they became a majority, and I just want to be clear with everybody that in no way did the BC Greens, as part of that partnership, stand in the way of the BC NDP doing what's right, and that's increasing that shelter rate. There's no question about the fact that is, well, it's a shockingly low rate. It is in no way connected to the reality of the housing market or the rental market in our province. So I just want to be clear on that. And I don't know that, and I don't think that you were suggesting that the BC Greens were in the way of that. But this is a policy decision, and I think that it's important that British Columbians understand that the BC NDP government every year crafts a budget, and they make decisions on those budgets, and they've made decisions that have not included the permanent increase. We saw a temporary increase during COVID-19, one that was widely embraced and applauded by folks who needed that increase previous to COVID, and who needed that increase once COVID is over. And that was cut back, and I think that's hurt a lot of British Columbians. And so it's important that we understand that this is a policy decision that's been made by this government. I think the Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction should have to answer to that decision that's been made, why it is that he hasn't been able to secure more funds from the Minister of Finance in budget 2022, and perhaps he can take steps to, I guess, solving this issue in the upcoming budget in 23. There's budget consultations that are starting to get underway here, and I would strongly recommend that people participate in that process. You can find it on the BC Legislative Assembly website. Participate in that process and let the government know what you think about the current rates.
Yeah, and I appreciate you mentioning that, because I mean it's definitely a hurdle that people, you can't find any cheap places for $375. You never could way back when, and I just don't understand why that the rates hadn't been adjusted, and it's crazy, eh?
I think actually I answered a question that you didn't ask, Brent. I'll just talk about the question you did ask. Oh, sorry about that. I wanted to be clear on that. So you talked about rent geared to income in the BC housing, that the 375 was geared more for people living in BC housing, and why not move this out to the secondary rental unit or secondary rental marketplace, which is largely either run by corporations, owned by corporations, or individuals who are renting basement suites or the such. And I think that the provincial government could provide rental supplements to folks that would benefit them, and that, again, that's a policy choice that the government has to make. I asked a question period earlier today, actually, about the real estate investment trusts. They're called REITs, and these are very large corporate institutional landlords that are purchasing a lot of the older, aging rental buildings in our cities. And Victoria is seeing a large number of these buildings be purchased. And what they're doing is they're renovating the people, and these older rental buildings are largely the most affordable units in the province. And many of people that have lived in these buildings have lived in them for years, and so their rent is still relatively affordable. And once people leave those units, they get renovated, or the whole building the tenants get renovated, the building gets upgraded, and then the rents get brought to market rates. And so what was an more affordable rental unit is now turned into something that's not really affordable by anybody. People live in them because they have no other choice. But so they not only, Brent, you raised the issue about inflation. The reality of it is that there's these other forces at play with the financialization of our housing market that are also increasing and making it very, very difficult for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you an example. We had a couple of people who lived across the hall paying $1,250, and they just buffered up the unit and rented for $1,600. Like a $350 increase, and then another guy moved out, so now it's going for $1,650 in the building. It's like, it's crazy, hey? But I mean, it's sky's the limit. They can get away with that.
And BC housing. So you raised the issue about BC housing. BC housing. There is an aspect of what BC housing is doing that's creating these units that are below market. And you hear a lot about the ribbon cuttings that the government wants to talk about with respect to the below market units that are, even the below market units are marginally affordable for people. If you are on PWD, if you're relying on that $375 maximum shelter rate, it's not affordable. You are likely, as the unfortunate story that you're a part of, Brent, where you're having to make decisions about whether to eat, or that is just the housing hub program that BC Housing is creating units that are at market rate. So a lot of the investment that this government talks about, a lot of the units that they're housing units that they're creating, are not affordable. Yes, we're creating more housing stock, but we're not creating them and at a price, at a cost point that people can afford to live in comfortably, where they're not having to make decisions about sacrificing the very basic needs.
Well, yeah, because a lot of people are paying more than 30% of their income, more. For instance, 75%, 80% in some cases, from what I'm hearing, and it's and of course, as cost of everything, cost of food goes up, everything, right? And it makes it very difficult to make ends meet, and that is kind of leads into the other topic about the actual support rates. I mean, they gave $175 last year in the budget, but nothing this year in the budget, and meanwhile, everything's gone up. I think the highest it's been in 31 years, and for inflation.
Yeah, the Bank of Canada just talking about it again. 6.5%, I think, was a number that I read just recently, maybe in one of the briefing notes. 6.7% reported in March.
Wow.
Yeah. Look, when unfortunately, and I'll take ownership of our part of this. When we talk about affordability in question period, we have not done enough to focus on the disability rates. I'll just say we've not done enough to talk about. We talk about affordability for kind of in a very general way, but those who are paying 60 to 70% of their income on housing, we don't do enough to spend enough time talking about that. And so I think I really appreciate being invited here to have this conversation today, because I think that it does help in focusing that we talk about this. We talk about affordability far too generally. I think we need to be more specific about those who are feeling the impacts of inflation and feeling the impacts of the increasing cost of living the most.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's more like when they say like affordable, like there's like so many different, when I watch the news, they talk about affordable housing, and I almost lose it, Adam. It's like, well, affordable for who though?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if somebody's making like $500,000 a year, it might be affordable to them, or if they're making $30,000 or $40,000 a year, I mean, so like it's ultra low market, or they call it below market rental units. But I know that the caveat on that one is, if they tell, like, say, a private developer to build affordable housing, they're going to look and say, well, we can't do it because we don't have the brakes on property taxes and materials to build these units. I guess the only way, if they wanted a private developer to build stuff, is, of course, municipalities would have to start giving them tax breaks and stuff, where, if it's built under BC housing, they kind of have that little buffer where they can do it. And I guess what I'm kind of wondering too is, like, if people that are in market housing, in order to get into BC housing, like it makes it a little bit more as an obstacle, because there's so many criteria that people have to have in order to get into like cheaper kind of housing. So it's like it's all red tape, right? I mean, you basically, you have the place has to be sold or condemned, or you're rent evicted or something. But
well, if you're using if the government continues to use kind of the market cost for a rental unit, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, bachelor, whatever that market is in whatever community we're talking about, they're pretty widely divergent across the province. Although I think we're seeing a lack of affordability everywhere. If they continue to use that as the measuring stick, we're going to continue to have people who are not able to afford the basic needs. We've asked this question. I've asked this question several times of the Minister of Housing, and that is, what is this provincial government doing with respect to building non-market units? So co-op, like, there are a number of different housing models that could be used in order to build housing that is outside the market. Those are, and I think one of the positive steps that the BC NDP has taken, I just discussed this or debated this bill yesterday, is it's allowing the Ministry of Transportation to purchase land near transit-oriented development. Now, if the provincial government buys that land with taxpayer money and turns around and builds market housing with it, that will be a huge mistake, and it will be a huge opportunity lost.